where I saw all the ugliness of the world in every respect. Humanly, the disrupted nature, the disrupted human relations. And in this, and physical ugliness unspeakable. And in this ugliness, there came through the field bookstores for the soldiers, the magazines, and often very good magazines with very good pictures. And I cut them out immediately, and we all did this, and hang them up in our little huts in the war. And then I bought more books about it and gained more and more interest. And then I did in the free times during the war what I did at the university with philosophy. I studied it systematically, namely the history of art very exactly, and the different styles and all this. And then another thing happened. This was, I came back then from the war in 1918, and there was a friend of mine, a very excellent and brilliant art critic, who introduced me into modern artistic styles. It was mostly at that time German Expressionism and French painting since Cézanne. And I didn't understand it, and he showed it to me. And I remember this afternoon, which had importance for my whole life, in which I suddenly, like a lightning, realized what beauty of visual arts is and what beauty modern art can express. And ever since, I was like a converted, not religiously converted, but artistically converted follower of modern art.
To you, would you say that it is in such areas as this, in culture, in the arts, and perhaps in other phases of culture, that one can best begin his search for meaning, or perhaps to use your phrase, ultimate concern? I'm really asking you a personal question here. In the search for meaning and for ultimate concern, what seems to you to be most important in your own experience?
No, this is a big question and needs a big answer. And you want me to make a little speech?
Yes.
No, all right, then I will try to do this. Now, the question of importance has, of course, a very biographical aspect, an autobiographical aspect. When I look back at my own life, then I would say that perhaps the church services given by my father in a very old 14th century Gothic church in eastern Germany, beautiful old church, and all what belonged to this church services impressed me so that I felt there is something which I much later in theological terms called with other people the holy. And this discovering of the sphere of the holy in the church services of my father was at the same time the basis for my decision to become a theologian. I don't doubt about this. This seems to be autobiographically very correct. There was an other element involved in it, the great dramatic vision which I found in the Christian drama, in the drama of creation, fall, incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection, and final judgment. Now this whole is of course a whole of symbols, but these symbols had very early a tremendous power about my imagination. And I believe that out of the dramatic character of this story, of the story of the world in religious terms, my own type of dramatic thinking in philosophy came. My interest in philosophy of history, in the drawing the universe into human history. And now the next step was probably the discovery of philosophy. It was also an autobiographical event. I was in the house of one of the ministers, of whom my father was, as was called at that time, the superintendent, a kind of suffragette bishop. And there I discovered a not very big volume of history of philosophy. And I studied that thoroughly when I was still in school, and knew all the philosophers from the first to the last by heart and with their doctrines when I went to the university. And now I was at the university student both of theology and philosophy. And of course I had to find a way in which one can be both. And my whole theological work, which started very early in my own study years, the first traces of what I would think later are so early that I said today to my friends with whom I talk here that I didn't learn anything in my whole life, because in my earliest writings I find everything already present. Now, of course, it's only partly present and potentially present, but somehow it's present. And if you ask me now about the further things, then one cultural realm after the other came into my interest. Of course, politics, when I was pushed into the First World War as a chaplain and came back, and there was the German Revolution, which I enjoyed because I felt that the old system was ripe to go down. And there I developed what I have called, what we called at that time, religious socialism. Then came the discovery of Freud. We have talked together about it too, and my interest in philosophy and culture. Then came the interest in art, about which we just have talked. And then came, of course, with my children, the interest in the problems of education. And so the whole cultural realm was for me not a realm besides religion, but I saw always in all of them the problem of the ultimate meaning of life. And now something else connected with this. When you ask me what is the most important thing, then I would say neither of these cultural things is the most important thing, because they all are transitory. Every political creation comes and goes after a certain time. Every philosophical creation comes and goes. Every artistic creation comes and goes. Every poetic creation comes and goes. Therefore, what is absolutely important, unconditionally important, cannot be something which comes and goes, but which remains in all of them and through all of them. And now please don't believe that I answer the question what is most important with the word religion. I don't do this. Because I know religion as a function of man's spirit, religion as I like to call it, the self-transcending desire of man's spirit, is in itself something which comes and goes. So what is left if even religion is not there?